TNKR Media.
Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business, presented by FL Montreal. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Ernie Furt of FL Today, filling in for Michael Newton. Ernie, hello, welcome back.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
How is the beginning of your summer so far?
So far, so good. Been working in the backyard a little bit, trying to organize the plants and the trees and everything and making sure everything looks nice, and cleaning the pool and doing all the household chores that I'm accustomed to during the summertime.
Indeed, time to organize and plant and also build. We'll be talking about building on the program today, talking about construction and Montreal's booming construction business with Broccolini, a name that's familiar to a lot of Montrealers. We see it around town all the time. Anthony Broccolini joins us, the COO, and they've been at it for a good 60 years at least. So that'll be a very interesting conversation coming up. And we'll also talk later on the program about non-resident real estate and a new federal tax on underused real estate property. So that will be coming up later in the program with our expert, Julie Cote. But first, Ernie, as usual, some news and notes. Let's start with this story from entrepreneur.com, 4 ways market leaders use innovation to foster business growth. So first of all, what is your definition of innovation? Because it's become something of a buzzword, but how do you define it?
Just to do something different for your own business, because innovation for you may not be innovation for somebody else. You want to change your business, so you have to innovate, and you have to create new things in order to push your business forward.
So some of what they suggest, number 1 of 4 here, is look before you leap.
Looking before you leap is, you don't want to rush into things. You want to make sure you survey what's going on around you, make sure you're doing the right thing, and then you can go forward. Don't go forward before you're ready. Not a good idea.
Create a roadmap and play the long game.
A lot of people are in things for a quick hit, and a quick hit doesn't necessarily lead to long-term success. Building something over the course of time, like 60, 70 years, like the Broccolini family has done, that's what you have to do. And that's a great thing. And we have done that here at Fuller Landau.
Speaking of, number 3 is build an exceptional network.
That's another thing that the Broccolinis have done. And this is another thing that we've done. You build a network, you build your contacts, you make sure that you're out there, that people know who you are. You do your charitable work, you do everything that you can in order for your name, your brand to have a recognition.
And lastly, decisiveness.
A lot of businesses are mired in analysis paralysis. They sit there, they analyze forever, and they make no decisions. Even if you make the wrong decisions, at least you're making decisions and you're trying to move something forward. You learn from your mistakes. It's important.
All right. That was a great lightning round, Ernie. Appreciate that. Let's move on. I really like this piece in Les Affaires. It's by Jean-François Berthollet, and he writes about the explosion in offices, especially during the pandemic, of excessive collaboration. That I found was a bit of a provocative argument about productivity.
We have a tendency now, being at home and not necessarily at the office, that we want to make sure that we work together and get things done and move everything forward. But, sometimes we just over email, we over Zoom, we over Teams, whatever we do, we have meetings that are too long, and we have people that shouldn't be present, other people that should be but are not. You're afraid to exclude somebody. And you have to figure out when people should and should not attend these meetings, because sometimes somebody should be there at the beginning, but not necessarily at the end. And sometimes you need somebody at the end to tie everything together. So, it's like an overuse of technology to a certain extent too, because, it's just because there's a door that's a handicap door that you can press a button to open doesn't mean you can, you're looking to open the door. Well, you know what? There's a door handle too. You can use the door handle and do it the old style. Some people just look for that new technology, and they must use that new technology or else it won't work. Not true.
And sometimes the new technology can increase the amount of time you're wasting on a task. I don't want to talk about Slack again, because I know there are a lot of Slack fans in our community here, but Slack can waste your time sometimes.
A lot of things can waste your time. You just have to be productive and choose the time wasters that you want to use. as long as they're partially productive. Listen, you need downtime too. You know, people overschedule meetings back to back to back to back. You're burnt out by the third meeting. And you don't need that. You know what? You need 15 minutes to go get a coffee, talk to your wife, talk to your kids, look outside at the birds, do something, and then get back. And then you're fresh again and you can go for another hour.
It's become kind of a cliche, and I see most people do this in meetings, but at the end, what the experts recommend, and this is in line with neuroscience, is to always have an actionable at the end of your meeting. And if you can't write something down, a follow-up action, then something went wrong in that meeting.
I would agree. Meetings have to have a purpose at the end of the day. If they have no purpose, then it's a social gathering. That has a purpose, at least.
Well said. All right. Another provocative article here from entrepreneur.com is selling on Amazon still a profitable business? That is interesting. I'll throw in the Montreal competitor Shopify into the mix. They're really decentralizing the system of online shopping and giving Amazon a run for their money. Selling
online is a necessary evil today. People don't want to necessarily go out in shopping centers. They don't want during the pandemic, they're not interested to go running around in stores. They want to have their choice. They'll look on Amazon. Oh my God, there's a million web pages that sell the same thing. So fantastic. I got to look at it. And now I got to differentiate that stuff and figure out what it is that I really want to buy. So selling on Amazon or selling on any of these platforms is an excellent thing, but you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have a proper consultant at that entity that will help you to design what you need. You don't want over information on there. You want to have enough information that people understand your product. They want to know where to get it, how, what does it cost, when can I return it, if I can return it, and what other people say about it.
Yeah, and minimize, hopefully, the returns, because that communication process in advance would minimize that. I mean, we just got something. My partner paid $250 for a pair of scuffed up sandals, and now I have to return it and waste more boxes, and it can get wasteful.
It's wasteful, and sometimes there's return fees too, which are hidden in deep, dark reaches in a small font that nobody can read.
Okay, lastly, we wanted to talk a little bit about podcasting. This from entrepreneur.com as well. 3 revenue increasing reasons why you should use a podcast in your content marketing strategy. First, I'll answer the question myself because I'm not sure it's the best revenue model. But first, just on podcasting, Ernie, do you listen to any?
I don't listen to very many. I've listened to a few. I've done a couple. It's a great way of getting your message across. You can go quickly in a podcast. It's not written, and afterwards you can basically dovetail that podcast into written material, into blogs, into whatever, and people have a tendency to look at it. If they want to have information about the product in a 30-second split, you can get that information while you're going to sit there reading that information, which you shouldn't be doing in your car. So if you're listening to a podcast, that's great. You can listen to the podcast in your car without any interruption. And then you know what it is that they're talking about, as opposed to sitting there on your computer and reading that.
And just a reminder that this is also a podcast. You can listen to iTunes, Today's Entrepreneur, the iHeartRadio version. It's on all the major platforms, so you can subscribe there if you like. And I agree, Ernie. I think the great part about podcasting is the fact that you get long form conversations and you get to kind of nerd out a little bit with people that are really, really experts in their field. And that's what we've been doing for a long time here on Today's Entrepreneur. And we'll do that next in the construction industry in Montreal. Broccolini is the company. Anthony Broccolini is the entrepreneur. Anthony, welcome to Today's Entrepreneur.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks.
So first, the easiest question for those that don't know, what is Broccolini?
So Broccolini is a family business. I'm a 3rd generation in the business, and we are a builder and developer operating in the Quebec and Ontario markets. We build and develop a number of different types of real estate projects and construction projects, do a lot of industrial, do a lot of office and high-rise residential.
I noticed I'm a West Islander. And for years, every time a new building goes up, I see a Broccolini sign. Now, one thing that I noticed is that you guys purchased some strategically located land. I believe the strategically located land was effectively from sources all the way out to I don't know where. It goes far west. And that was amazing. And I always said, that is amazing. And how did you do that? And how did they think about this initially?
Yeah, so you know what, it's we have a long history. My grandfather started the business in 1949. He was a home builder, built a lot in Montreal West, La Prairie, and his career was a home builder. And his four boys came into the business in the early 80s and shifted towards more commercial and industrial. And during that time, did a lot of different contracts for third party clients, and became successful at it. And at one point, had some excess funds, and bought our first piece of land, a big tract of land in Bay d'Urfé. And that's really where we sort of really started focusing on design, build, and turnkey solutions for our clients, where we own the land, we control the land, and we were able to put together quick turnkey solutions for clients so that we can get them into their buildings quicker, go through the entitlement processes with the cities and whatnot. So that was sort of late 90s, early 2000, where that started to happen, where the company shifted from being just a general contractor to becoming more and more a real estate developer. And that's sort of where the business started to shift and morph into more of who we are today. So at the heart of what we do, we're builders, but certainly we've added on that development expertise, where we're able to have vision to see where trends are going, where industries are going, where the economy is going, and certainly able to acquire the right tracts of land, to have that future forecast of where where the city is going to continue to get built out towards.
It's very interesting because, building out, off of Highway 40, you've been doing that for years. When Ontario built Highway 407, all of a sudden there was nothing next to Highway 407. But I'm sure guys like you purchased land around Highway 407 and effectively used the adage, if I build it, they will come. And that's effectively what you guys did. I don't know if you did anything with respect to Highway 30 when they built that here. Did you guys purchase any tracts of land around Highway 30?
We've done some projects around there. We just finished building a distribution center for IKEA out there. So definitely, any major arteries are always well positioned, certainly from industrial perspective, from a commercial perspective. So every market segment's a little bit different, and certainly today, lots and lots of industrial going on, and we're definitely, I think, one of the best placed industrial players in the marketplace, and so we have large tracts of industrial land, and continue to do a lot of industrial construction along those major arteries.
Can you give us a sense of what the commercial real estate business has been like this year, especially as at the tail end of the pandemic? It seems like a lot of properties are moving and a lot is going on.
It's been very interesting, and I think pre-pandemic Montreal was in certainly in my life, seeing the economy the strongest that it's ever been. Certainly the pandemic has had some impacts, but I really don't think that it's slowed it down. I think obviously every market segment's been a little bit different. Certainly retail has had its set of challenges. Office, I think office is, we're I think the entire world is going to be writing that chapter together, in terms of work from home, hybrid work, and we're going to see how that's going to play itself out over the next 2 years. But there really hasn't been any major movement there yet. Certainly, the two very, very active markets right now that have been really hot is obviously the industrial market, that has really it's always been good in Montreal, or maybe not always, but it's pre-pandemic it was good, but now it's definitely spiked quite a bit, and lots and lots of activity there. And then same thing on the residential side. The residential market in Montreal has been has been very strong for the last number of years. The demand has been very, very high, and there's not too much supply on the market. So it's as we've been seeing, I mean, pricing across all of those sectors have been climbing, and I would definitely say a very healthy market right now.
Skyrocketing, not climbing. I want to go back for a second to the office space sector. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was thinking, okay, a lot of people are going to start working from home. It's going to be hybrid. So as soon as people's leases are going to be up, they're going to look to get smaller space. That's one school of thought. Now there's another school of thought out there that's basically saying, okay, when people are coming back to work, we need more space so we can socially distance people. Okay, so there's two schools of thought. Where do you sit?
We've had a lot of discussions around this. I mean, we have we have a nice sized portfolio of real estate, so we have a lot of tenants in our buildings, and a lot of discussions. There used to be this and very apropos for for hockey fans, but growing up I used to love the Molson commercial. The more things change, the more things stay the same, right? And there's no question that things have changed. The notion of remote working from home, pre-pandemic, was a certain small percentage of the population that sort of adopted it and was working with it and experimenting with it. The entire world now has proved that it works, right? And obviously there's different spectrums of it. But humans are social creatures. We want to be together, and so I think right now everybody is talking about hybrid environment, because obviously there's pros and cons to working from home. So right now certainly the trend is it's going to be everyone's talking about sort of these hybrid structures and formats. But also at the same time, I also think that at the end of the day, once people get comfortable to go back, I think it's going to be a switch that just like that gets turned back on, and there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to be back in full force and possibly not working from home at all, while there's others that are going to adopt that hybrid model. So I think like I said, I think this is going to be an experiment for the world, and I think vis-a-vis office space, you're going to have companies that are sort of in between, right, where they're doing exactly what they were doing pre-pandemic, and some are going to alter and change and make adjustments. So I think it's going to be interesting times ahead, and I think it's going to take probably a couple of years to see how it all works itself out.
And Anthony, I was wondering, on the political front, I don't want to get too intense on that level for this program, but what is Montreal like as a partner, as a building partner? Do you have a lot of cooperation with the city or with regional governments here? And do you find that we're taking advantage of the boom that's happening in construction right now?
Many different municipalities in Montreal, right? And we work in many, so I think every municipality is a little bit different. I think as far as we pride ourselves on it's a relationship business, right? And the community that we work in, it's a village, and so every city is a little bit different. But I think ultimately you got to work closely, and you got to find what works best for every place that you're working, right? And when working downtown Montreal as an example, and I think we take this viewpoint with wherever we're working, but taking it specifically with maybe a downtown tower in the center of the city, and we really need to work in terms of what belongs there, right? What is going to fit there, what's going to fit into the fabric, and what's going to add to the fabric of the city, right? And I think for the most part, you work with folks that have a genuine interest in city building, doing what's right for the community. And I think as long as you have open-minded parties on both sides, I think it's it's a relationship that goes quite well. and it's like I said, it's all about the relationships, because it's, the building community it's a big community and lots of stakeholders in it, and you got to get sort of everyone on side and everyone aligned with a certain vision.
Ernie, I'll toss it back to you there on relationship management, especially when it comes to the government, because few industries are as tightly regulated as construction. I mean, they tell you how to build, really, in many cases.
Of course.
Tough to get around if you're an entrepreneur.
And each municipality has different regulations. And I was going to ask a more pointed question with respect to that, which is the most difficult municipality to deal with? If you want to answer that, you don't have to answer that, or you can answer alternatively, which one is the easiest to work with?
You know what, I won't, specify any specific municipality, but I think, in some, it's very prescribed, exactly what it is, and taking downtown Montreal as an example, a lot of it is very prescribed in terms of the heights, the densities, the setbacks, and as long as you're working within that context, it's actually very straightforward. So there's not, it's when you want to stretch beyond that, which is a whole other conversation, because we are an island, we are growing, and as one of my uncles likes to say, that the man upstairs isn't making land anymore, right? So I think long term, in terms of vision for for Montreal, for the island, there's a lot that's been built out. There's not a lot of land that's left, and I think policy going forward for the next 20-30 years, that's where it's going to continue to be interesting, because there's only so much urban sprawl that can happen. So I think longer term policy is going to be interesting.
And I also know that you're in Ontario as well. Ontario has different rules than Quebec, and different items to deal with. How is Ontario to deal with? Similar?
You know what? In some cases more straightforward, but longer. So definitely, clear, sometimes a little bit more detailed, sometimes not. So yeah, definitely I would say a little bit more straightforward, more thorough through the process, but a lot longer in terms of getting the entitlements, right? And I think Montreal is somewhat catching up, which if I go 10-15 years ago, things would happen so quick, and that entitlement process wouldn't be a major factor in any of your projects that you're building. Whereas today, it's starting to become more and more of a factor where we want to go faster, and in some cases we can't, right? And so I would definitely say Quebec is catching up in certain instances there.
Are you more in Eastern Ontario, or are you in the Toronto area? Where are you located there?
In Ottawa and Toronto.
Ottawa and Toronto.
So we've been in Ottawa for about 15 years and been in Toronto for about 10 years now.
And there's a lot of things going on with green buildings and LEED certification and all of that. I understand you guys are into that, and you're making suggestions for your customers in that regard. You want to talk about the green buildings a little bit?
Absolutely. So I mean, it's it's something that rightfully so is becoming more and more top of mind. We're fortunate, we've been involved in probably over 45 to 50 LEED projects, ranging from all kinds of different certifications. I think in general, I always like to say that the construction industry as a whole, you look at comparing it to other industries, it's an industry that's pretty archaic in terms of how things have been done. And I think it's certainly very much ripe for a change. So you look at how things were built, when they built Place Ville Marie, versus how we're building things today, there's not a tremendous amount of change that's happened. I think we're on that forefront where technology is really coming into place, and there's smarter ways of putting things together. When you think of energy modeling, I mean, obviously buildings consume a great amount of energy in terms of building them, but then also operating them. And so I think, in general, we're just getting smarter, more efficient using technology. But I also think in terms of our construction methods, that's where, I think there's definitely an opportunity for further change there. And it's something that we certainly want to be, more and more on the forefront on, and it's going to be required, right? And I think every aspect of the industry has to do their part, right? Every aspect of the world has to do their part, because we are on the forefront of a very, very big challenge, a challenge that I think mankind doesn't fully appreciate yet. We're getting there, but it's going to start hitting us a lot harder in the next coming years. So we got to start making that change.
You're in the business with family members. How many family members are in your business today?
So I have my dad and two uncles, second generation, who are still actively, very active in the business. And I have 5 or 6 cousins, that third generation, that are in the business.
And how do you split all the work amongst you?
You know what? I mean, it's, we're a family business, but at the same time, there's so many, family members that I consider as family that don't have the Broccolini last name, and we're fortunate. We have a phenomenal group of people that are here that we consider as family, that have been with us for 25, 30 plus years. So it's a big extended family, right? And so it's not, we like to say that, Broccolini is now bigger than any one of us, right? And it's a big group. It's a big team effort. That I think, amongst family and non-family, it's just all about trust and respect, and being able to collaborate well together, right? And I think that's that's been a key ingredient to our success. Is we work really, really hard. We're super passionate, and we just work well together. And I think that's, for any company, that's important ingredients of success.
Look, you've built quality relationships with your people, with your suppliers, with everybody else. You do quality work, so things are going to work the way they're supposed to, because you're doing it the old way. You're working hard at it.
Absolutely,
and that's key.
One question: what is the Broccolini dream project? If you were to really fantasize, are we talking? Is it a LEED platinum skyscraper? What's the crown jewel eventually?
I'll answer that in a couple of different ways, and first and foremost, our long-term vision, our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal, is that we want to be the most sought after builder and developer in Canada. And that means that, we don't want to be in every province. We don't want to be the biggest volume, builder and developer, but whatever we do, we want to be recognized as sort of that top, tier brand in what we do. So in terms of that, jewel or that gem, I think, at the end of the day, we're doing a couple of things. We're city building. We're helping build the economy. And so I don't think there's one specific, building type that to say that this is it, right? And we're super proud of what we're able to do. And right now we're incredibly fortunate, for the work that we have on hand. We're building the National Bank's new head office, downtown Montreal, the biggest office building that's been built in the last 30 some odd years. Right next to it, we're building a gem, a 60-story skyscraper, mixed use tower, Victoria sur le Parc, which has about 300,000 square feet of office. We're building large distribution centers. So we're fortunate to be involved in many different asset classes that that just help Montreal grow, right? And whether it's helping move goods in and around our communities, to housing people in office buildings, to building up communities, right? And so I think it's all of those things. And to me, it's whatever we're doing, we want to do it really, really well, and better than anyone.
Anthony Broccolini, COO of Broccolini Construction, will have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur on the way. But first, it's time for our expert, and we're talking about non-resident taxes and a new tax on real estate. Julie Cote is the non-resident tax specialist at FL Montreal. Welcome back, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
And Ernie, this new federal tax on underused real estate property, very, very, very different, and something we should be aware of.
Absolutely. Julie, would you like to talk about that 1% tax that came out in the budget?
Yes, it's actually called the 1% taxation on underused property. We've been hearing about this for years from all major cities. It's actually in function right now in Toronto and Vancouver. Montreal talked about it for a while, but now in the federal budget, they announced that they will act on it starting 2022. Right now, we have more questions than answers, but one thing that was made clear in the budget is that Canadian citizens and permanent residents would be exempted of this 1% tax. This means that any owner that holds either a Canadian passport or a permanent resident card will not be taxed to 1% on the value of their property if it's vacant. So even if they are non-resident for tax purposes, this 1% will not apply to them. Keep in mind, however, that all the tax obligations will still apply to all the non-resident if they're selling or renting their property. This tax is entirely new.
So with the real estate boom, going on with the commercial residential, is it attracting many foreign purchasers? And what are the problems you encounter regularly?
Yes, the market being hot attracts a lot of people, a lot of foreigners, and it's mostly the lack of tax research before jumping in the venture. Many owners come to us after many years of ownership, sometimes renting it out for a while and looking to sell, and they're surprised and mostly frustrated to learn they missed all the tax requirement and must now comply with added penalties. Of course, consulting a tax specialist before investing will help them understand their tax obligation related to owning this property, renting it out, and part of which is Part 13 of the tax law, which requires them to remit 25% on a monthly basis to the Canada Revenue Agency. This always comes as a surprise.
A lot of things are surprising to non-residents. At the end of the day, we've seen this situation crop up many times where people have no clue, where people are misreporting things. They're reporting things in the US or elsewhere, not reporting them at all. And everything comes to a head when they're going to sell it. So that's an important thing. So when they sell the property, what are the things that you tell people?
Well, first of all, foreign investors are almost always blindsided by the Section 116 tax filing, which is to require compliance certificates from the government before they can actually touch the money from their transaction. And a large sum of money gets held by the notary while this is getting processed by the government. It takes months to resolve, and the waiting time can be it can be reduced by simply getting the proper information, getting help from a tax specialist, filing the request early, and it will ease the process, and of course, getting information. And as you said, a lot of things get left out, like reporting this Canadian income, either from rentals or capital gain in their home country, which is maybe US, Canada, or anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of that. That people aren't prepared the way they should be, and they don't realize that they can apply for this 116 certificate in the Quebec equivalent under Section 1097 of the law in advance. And if they apply in advance and they have a purchase agreement, a signed offer, and they know what they're doing and they know what their costs are, we can do that form in advance for them and cut back on that wait time near the end.
Absolutely.
That's very, very key with the non-resident real estate. They don't understand their obligations when they purchase. They're not told about their obligations when they purchase. If you purchase just to have it, as a pied à terre, that's fine. For now, except this 1% that you have to consider, but we have to figure out who it applies to at the end of the day. But if you're not renting it, no problem until you sell. If you rent it, then you got to talk to somebody like Julie in order to make sure that you're meeting your Canadian tax obligations. Because certain people don't care. And then they get into this big jackpot at the end and they have to pay all kinds of interest, potentially penalties on this stuff. And the money that they think they're going to have to purchase that next property is tied up for a while. So that's what you don't want. Any other parting advice you want to give these people who purchase or sell real estate, Julie?
Well, this will apply across the world. Before investing in another country, check the tax rules. Get in touch with a tax specialist in that country and listen to what they have to say and follow the rules. You will end up winning in the end.
Julie
Absolutely.
Cote, Julie Cote, non-resident tax specialist at FL. Super helpful. Thanks so much, Julie.
You're welcome. A pleasure.
And now, Ernie, let's turn to Anthony Broccolini at the end of our program here and ask for his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
So the two words that come to mind is vision and passion. I think from a vision perspective, you need to look at things from a long-term perspective, understand where you want to go with whatever you may be doing. And I think, we've been fortunate from a family business perspective of having a long-term vision, right? And looking to build a legacy, right? And I think that's always led us to the right decisions. And then passion, because I can tell you, and any entrepreneur would tell you, that it ain't easy. You're going to get knocked down a lot of different times, a lot of different ways, and you're going to be tested. You got to be persistent. And I think that passion is what can help carry you through, those more challenging times. So vision and passion is what I would recommend to those entrepreneurs that are out there.
I agree with that. Most of our entrepreneurs on this show have used the word passion, and passion is key to success in any business. If you are passionate about your business, chances are you're going to be successful at it.
And patience, the long-term planning involved in that business especially, is always mind-blowing to me. Anthony Broccolini, really interesting chat. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, guys.
And don't forget, you can head over to today'sentrepreneur.org for over a decade worth of entrepreneur profiles, and we'll be back here in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much, Ernie. That was fun.
A lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.